Hello and welcome to the Swim Brief. I'm Chris DeSantis, and today on the Swim Brief, it is my pleasure to welcome the head coach of women's swimming and diving at the University of Illinois, Jeana Kempe.
You got it.
Jeana, how are you?
It was perfect. I'm good. Thanks for having me. I'm excited. I'm excited to chat.
Yeah, as usual, I was like, just about to hit record, and I went, I better make sure I know how to pronounce your name. I messed up your name when we met at the CSCAA conference, I guess a month ago. And, I was like, oh God, nervous, and rehearsing that moment. But we got it. We nailed it.
We got it. You nailed it. As I said, I think people have been saying my name wrong my entire life. For good or
That
bad,
sucks.
I've stopped correcting them just because I'm like, you know what? It's Jeana, but you want to call me Jenna or Jeanna or Jeannie or whatever? It's Jeana. It's okay. My last name, my maiden name was always hard. So I've just come to learn that that's part of it.
Yeah. You know what? It's all the Gina Ginas out there that's messing it up for you.
I know.
People have a predominant spelling that they want for the name, and you have a slightly atypical spelling, and then your mind just breaks.
I know. It's okay.
People get confused. Okay. Let's get into it right away.
Okay.
Because people have been on my case. I don't know if you know this. I think I told you this when we met. People have been on my case to get you here on the podcast.
You did tell me that, but I was shocked by it.
People are always shocked when they hear that. Yeah. But it is actually true that, actually for the majority of guests, it'll usually be an accumulation of people that I meet that's like, oh, you got to have this person on. Yeah. So the good news for you is that you have peers that think well of you.
From me. Yeah.
Yeah. Even the people who already maybe know some of the stuff you're going to say today.
Yeah.
They're interested.
I'm
fascinated. I'm fascinated, Jeana, with coach origin stories. So, tell us, I just watched Batman Begins. What's the Jeana Kempe Batman Begins story? Yeah.
Where did I start? My origin story. I don't even think coaching was in anything I wanted to do ever. Loved swimming. Loved it. From the age of 9, I was a gymnast. I dabbled with gymnastics. I was kind of good, and then I wasn't good. Once things got scary, I wanted nothing to do with it. And so I started swimming, and I loved swimming. There was no other sport for me. I've always was a swimmer. I think I'm always going to have that in my DNA. But I just coaching was never a part of that, and I graduated from, I really struggled in school. School was really hard for me. Maybe not high school, but college was really hard for me. And I had an academic advisor and an academic coach at UCLA that were amazing and really helped me get through school, guide me, teach me all these skills, just really helpful. And I was like, man, I want to do that. That's what I want to do. I was dead set on being involved with academics in some capacity, whether it was counselor, academic advisor, all these things. And I got my graduate assistant position at Northern Arizona in academic advising. I was like, oh, this is awesome. I'm going to get to try it out, all these things. And I think I in it for 6 months. I hated it so much. It's a lot of work. And now I know even more, after being in college athletics, how hard academic advising can be with retention and matrices and all this stuff about making sure everyone's on their degree progress. And I want nothing to do with that. So when I got to Northern Arizona, Andy Johns was like, hey, I would love for you to coach the club team. I needed to make some extra money. Flagstaff is a very expensive place to live, especially.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really expensive. It's where everyone has their second homes, right? And I'm this grad student trying to make ends meet. So coached the 8 and unders, which was so fun. It got me a little bit to dabble with swimming, even though I was really trying to find my way away from swimming at that time. But then it turned out I hated academic advising. And so Andy was like, hey, what if swimming and diving helps pay your grad school? And you in return, I guess I was GA or volunteer, whatever it was at the time, and do that. And I was like, oh, it sounds better. So I was coaching and helping Andy coach. I wasn't really, Dave Rollins was the assistant at the time. So it was
friend of the pod, Dave Rollins. Yeah.
Right. And Dave. And then I was just I did whatever I was told, whether that was just setting up practice. I don't even remember. And then I coached the club team, but then in the athletic department, I was working the front desk. I was doing fundraising events. That's how I met my husband. And just, I probably had my hand in everything in the athletic department. So I knew a little bit about all things. And Dave left to go to Ohio State, I'm pretty sure at the time, if I remember correctly. And Andy was like, "You want to try it?" It's like, "Sure. I want a job. I need to stay." And that's how I fell into coaching. I don't think it was ever the path that I was trying to be on.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, that's not necessarily what I was expecting, but I think it parallels, where a lot of us come into it. I mean, I can still remember telling my parents I wanted to be a swim coach as a profession and just the
Yeah.
crushed look on their face. Because I think it's looking back, and being a parent myself now, it's like it's a tough profession. It's a tough profession to make your way in
Yeah.
as a career.
Yep.
And so I think that does impact the way that even us kind of like swimming junkies, we look at it because we think like it's not really practical. So many, many coaches, I think, just don't start necessarily with that as the goal. Perhaps for that reason. I don't know what your reasons were. You just had
I think I
other
was just
interests at the
trying to
time.
like disassociate from swimming so hard that I just like went in a totally different direction. And maybe I just realized like maybe I need to be a part of it again. I don't know.
Well, that's a juicy statement for a follow-up. I mean,
I don't even know if
did
I
you
have
have
an
a
answer.
bad experience swimming in college? Like, were you?
No, I had the greatest experience swimming in college. I like day in and day out, I would stand by like my 4 years at UCLA, actually 4.5 years at UCLA. Greatest 4.5 years. I loved everything about college swimming. I think I was just to the point of starting at 9, and that's really all I ever did. I think I was just like, I was ready to see if there was something else that was there that I just didn't know. I think that's more of what it was. I was just ready to spread my own wings away from the sport and away from being Jeana the swimmer and like be Jeana and not
Yeah,
tied to it. I think it was more than
yeah.
anything.
You were, of course, at UCLA swimming for Cindy Gallagher. I've had a couple missed appointments with Cindy to get her on this podcast. I'm dying to get it. And I have to admit, like emotionally, I was very touched watching her receive an award at the CSCAA meeting that we
Wow.
were at, mainly because it really brought to the front to me how influential she's been and like how many people just look up to her or, are now in the coaching ranks and like
Yeah.
basing. Talk about how that experience swimming at UCLA informed who you are as a coach.
Man, I think like so fondly of UCLA. I mean, it's UCLA, right? Like, and I think
It's a cool place.
unless you've been there, unless you like went to school there, you don't necessarily know and understand, but it's UCLA. Like, it's beautiful. It's the people, like all the student athletes are at the top caliber of what they do. I think when I was there, I mean, women's golf won a national title. Basketball was at 2 Final Fours. Women's gymnastics were always competing for a national title. Softball won a national title. I was there. I think there was one year that we had like 6 national titles in a year when I was there. And it was just being surrounded by those student athletes. And then I also think about like the coaches that Cindy was surrounded by, Sue Enquist, Valerie Condos Fields with gymnastics, and then Cindy. And I'm sure that there were plenty of other ones that were, even at that level. And it was it was surreal. It was like no matter where you were around it. And Cindy was like that, right? Like Cindy cared so much about, yes, swimming fast, being successful. She's highly competitive, even though she comes across as maybe she's not. She wanted to kick everybody's butt. She really wanted to do that. And, but yet you knew like Cindy really cared about you. Like I knew Cindy cared about me graduating and having good grades and getting some of my life together, maybe because I didn't always have it together my freshman year. But she cared tremendously, and single mom at the time. And Tori would be on the pool deck and Tori would be here, and just watching her handle those things and how she went about leading a group of women, right? And just like how she did that. I mean, I think that's ultimately I can look back and be like, man, that's kind of why I want to coach. My club coach was the same way. I don't know if you know Mary Liston. She
Oh,
coached at
yeah.
yeah, so Rockwood Swim Club, everybody knows Mary, and, I was really fortunate to have Mary as a club coach, and she was just like the beginning of my female coaching experience, and Mary's kind of I don't know if I could say this, but she's kind of a hard ass, or she was, And
And
she
she's
just
very
did phenomenal.
counterculture too, right? I mean,
Yes.
like Mary's not afraid to go against the grain.
Not afraid, and not afraid to, like, call a spade, right? Like, if you're
Hmm.
not doing the things that you say you wanna do for your goals, I mean, she's just gonna flat out tell you, and I always loved that about her. I don't know if that's necessarily my personality, I can't do it the way Mary does, and Cindy didn't do that the way that Mary does, and so it's been I've seen it modeled differently, but those 2 women in my life, I mean, they've been paramount in all of the good, the bad, like, they've been there to see it all, and I think, they're a huge reason of why I love coaching now, for sure.
Yeah, you've inspired me. I got to get Mary on here because last time I met her, I mean, she was telling her some stories about, I mean, early in her career being a college swim coach. And I mean, like in those days, Mary stood out
Yes.
as a college swim coach. She
Yes, she
really
did.
did. And I think it's though I listening to those, I'm not going to step on them because I think they're Mary's stories to tell, but
Right.
they had a big impact on me. Coming back to you and sort of the progression of your coaching career. Like I'm doing my research for this. I'm looking across your bio. I mean, it's a factor of coaching that sometimes you got to be a little bit itinerant. And you had a bunch of stops on the way to becoming a head
I
coach.
did.
You
I
really
did.
did.
It's funny because, like, sometimes people look at that as, like, red flags. I'm like, "Oh, you've been so many
Right.
places," but
I
I don't
don't.
know, yeah, I've also looked at it as, like, man, I have so many tools in my tool belt, right? Like, I've worked for so many different people, I actually haven't worked for so many different people, but I've worked for a handful of different people, but I've worked with a lot of different assistants, I could say that. I've worked with a lot of different assistants, and I think I could tell you now I've learned something from every single one of them, good and bad, and I hope they from the same from me, right? And I don't know, I just feel like that's a good thing sometimes.
If you could go back in time, I mean, and just what was the motivation? So what drove you to go from one place
Mm.
to the next? What was behind those decisions?
Probably a little bit, like, at the time, the grass is greener or, like, how do I keep getting right? Like, I think that competitiveness and, like, that being the swimmer and, like, the student athlete of, like, always wanting to be a little bit better and be around more elite athletes and how that goes, was probably the initial factor in the beginning, right? Like going from Northern Arizona and Andy Johns, if you want someone on a podcast, like Andy, he's awesome. And I learned so much from him. And I was so grateful to have him as my first head coach that I worked for. I learned so much and I did a lot there. But then also when you get the opportunity in the SEC at LSU, like, how do you say no to that? I don't know. That was really hard for me to say, like, I don't know. I think I'm gonna stay at Northern Arizona. It's like, no, you're gonna
Mm.
go to LSU. You're gonna love Baton Rouge. Worked with Dave Geyer and once again learned so much. Got to work with my own group. I wasn't working with my own group per se at Northern Arizona, but just getting some trial and error as a coach, like on my own, was amazing. And at the time, my parents were living in Florida. My husband's parents were living in Florida. So for us going from Arizona to Louisiana kind of made sense. Like it did bring us exponentially closer to our family. And so that was really good. I mean, my husband and I got married in Baton Rouge. He moved with me from Arizona and we
It's a
did
lot of
that.
moves.
Oh my gosh. You want to talk about moves? Like he has more moves under his belt. And I am a military kid. So like moving for me was okay,
I
it's been
see.
2 years. When's the next thing coming on? So that was real. I mean, that was really good. And then I felt like similar with Auburn. It's like, man, it's Auburn.
I know,
Like
right?
that is the pinnacle. Like I wanted to go to Auburn when I was younger, right? Like Auburn and Georgia were just like, how do you go there? I wanted to be Mimi Bowen, right? Like that's who I wanted to be. She was like swimming idol. And now I get to coach under the flags and banners that she raised. Like, wow. So that was a pretty neat experience. And even I think when we moved to South Carolina, it was like, well, Jeff's been so successful. What can I learn from Jeff? And how does that work? And so I think some of it has been like that urge to keep learning is like and moving and learning from others more than it probably has been anything.
I'm totally with you on the Auburn thing. I mean, I was my last college coaching stop. I was coaching at Georgia Tech, and so we were maybe like 90-minute drive
Yeah.
away from Auburn. Those two schools are pretty close, and I think it's for the best that I never got a job there. I mean, Brett Hawk currently has me blocked on social media.
No.
So I don't think we would have gotten along that well if we'd spent more than like, a few hours together. But I just
Yeah.
remember like, trying a few times with my wife being like, could we move to Auburn, Alabama? And her being like, no.
What a different place. I mean, and everyone that has ever been to Auburn or lived in Auburn will attest, like, there's no place like it. It's, like, almost
Mm.
utopic. It's kinda wild, and we still have great friends in Auburn, and our neighbors, we still keep in touch, and I think that's just it's very Midwest in the South, and
Oh,
that's
for
unless you're a
sure.
Midwesterner, you don't really understand that, but, there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah, and I just to defend my wife, she was not objecting to Auburn, the town. It's
Right.
she was an architect at the time, so we more or less professionally had to be in major
In
urban
the city. Yeah.
centers. So Atlanta made a lot more sense than Auburn, Alabama for
Yeah,
her
it's a little different
career
for
wise.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. You become head coach. You've just passed 4 years in the job
Yes.
at Illinois.
Yes, crazy. Starting my
So it's
5th year already.
I know. I feel like this is where I'm getting old too. I'm like, oh, Gina just got hired.
I
Like
know, and I haven't.
it's been a minute. It's been a minute,
Been a
but it's
minute.
still not too late to ask you this question. What are your reflections on kind of the biggest differences between being an assistant and head coach? You had all these stops as an assistant coach.
Yeah,
Now you've been the big boss for 4 years. What are the
yeah.
biggest differences?
It's hard. Like, being a head coach is hard, and
I know, right?
every yes, it's so hard, and I think people, it's like being a parent, like, you never know if you're ready until you just do it, and I feel like being a head coach is pretty similar at this point, like, I think I had all the tools and I had a little bit of everything. Was I ready? I don't know. I think I was, but I think it's been a whirlwind. The first year was just like drinking from a hot fire hose, and I know that self-expression or that, like, expression is used a lot. Literally felt like I was drinking from a fire hose. Every day was just, like, marking off the to-do list. What's next? What's next? And before I realized it, it was January, and we were still going. And now it's funny because 4 years later, I don't have that feeling anymore. However, hiring a new assistant was like drinking from a fire hose because I've never done it before. And so there's a lot of things, even as like a first time head coach, that 4 years later, you realize, haven't done that, haven't done this. And so I do find that to be kind of crazy that even 4 and 5 years later, you're still doing things that you've never done. But I think the hardest part is the decisions all the time. Everything is a decision. Everything, big and small, always come across your desk. You always have to have the answer. I find that a little bit exhausting. Like, I think you can have decision fatigue and always wanting to make it sure it's right. I think that's where I struggle the most as a head coach is like, is this right? Well, it's not always going to be right. And I just have to be very steadfast in it. And I have to be very confident in that decision. And sometimes I'm wrong. And I got to learn from that and grow. So I think that's been the hardest part of being a head coach. That and like mentoring the staff.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like, it's not just you. Like, you are also responsible for these other people to help them in their career and push them and hold them accountable and also have fun with them. Right. Like, so I have found that to be I think that's been a huge challenge for me.
Yeah. It's not only the decisions, but then everybody's going to second guess your decisions, right? I mean, like
Correct.
pretty much everybody else, all the people who are not actually accountable for the decisions. I used to say this when I was an assistant coach. I guess I'm giving myself credit. I at least had enough forethought to say this to my boss at the time at Georgia Tech, Courtney Hard,
Yeah.
because I could see her getting frustrated with, athletes second guessing her, us as assistant coaches second guessing her. And I think one time I just sat with her and I said, like, Courtney, just so you know, like, the rest of us don't have to live with the consequences of our hypothetical decisions. I can
Right.
sit here and go, things would have been so much better if Courtney had just done this and this and that. But like, I just get to create that for a fantasy world. You
Right.
actually make decisions and like bear the brunt of responsibility. So just like, be proud of yourself a little bit. I
I
know it's
look back
hard.
I look back
Yeah.
on things that I might have said or thoughts
As an
that I had,
assistant.
and I, like, cringe at myself and be like, "Gina, why? No. You need to go
Yeah.
back and say I'm sorry." So yeah,
Yeah.
you're right, and I think that's I often look at my assistants and be like, "Well, you're not the one that has to sit in the chair and actually do that. So let's
Yeah.
have another
Yeah.
conversation."
You're not going to be talking to our AD later if this completely blows up. That's going to be me.
Right, right.
right?
We don't have those
Absolutely.
situations though, so that's
No,
okay.
no, 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 no. That kind of stuff doesn't happen in Illinois. I
No.
know, I know. Speaking specifically of Illinois, and I think you're particularly, given some of the history that we've just discussed, like you're really equipped to answer this question because I think you spoke to it that, every situation is a little bit different. You have
Yeah.
these experiences in different places. And although, structurally, the thing that you're doing can be the same. Oh, it's swimming. We have practice. We go to the pool. We go to the weight
Yeah.
room, meets on Saturdays. Each institution presents its own challenges. It presents its own, they have strengths as well, right? They have things
Right.
that are, that can turn into, that are advantages. They can turn into even bigger advantages over time if you know what to do.
Mhm.
So in Illinois, how are
Yeah.
you tailoring the way you coach specifically to the strengths and limitations of that institution?
Of our program and institution. I think
Yeah.
even just from a training perspective, I think about, year 1, we did something from a weekly cycle, and then year 2, we did something different, like, we tweaked it. Year 3 and 4, we finally did the same thing 2 years in a row, and my heart of, like, organization was like, "Yes, we have 2 years in a row where we're doing the same thing." Got completely different results, which is kinda crazy to think about, and then in year 5, we've already, like, tweaked it again. So I do think from that perspective, for us, it's just been learning and growing and, like, whose strength and coaching is where and whose weakness and how we, like, keep manipulating that a little bit. But I do think Illinois is a really highly academic school, and our girls are very high academics, mostly not mostly engineers, but we have 3 to 4 engineers on the team, and we have a ton of business majors in the team. A lot of people that go exercise science or MCB and want to do PA school, PT school afterwards. And that's just how they're wired. And so I think the biggest adjustment for me is tailoring to coach those women and women that can be very high stress in all facets of their life and not needing swimming to be another stressor, right? In a place that they can still find happiness and success. And I have planned a lot of like how we do our meets around big test weeks for them. If I know midterms are here, I tend to stay away from that. Our first couple of years, we tried to go to a midseason meet after Thanksgiving. Terrible idea because of finals. So just like little things like that have been eye opening. We tend to train in the mornings as our bigger practice or go every morning because of class conflicts, and it just
Yep. I was going
allows
to
for
go there.
them. Yep.
Yes.
I think that's been I don't know. Kudos to the former head coach because she would run makeup practices all the time and do
Mm.
that. And I was just like, I don't know if I can sustain constantly doing makeups. And I had told the staff, I'm like, obviously, let's accommodate and we're gonna work with it, but let's find the schedule that allows for us to all be together because coaching a single gender program, I think being together is super important. And once you start breaking up a lot, and I think that's not good for women, per se. So I think there's things like that at Illinois that I would say that we've really figured out from an academic standpoint how to get the best out of our team. So,
Yeah, I think there's a critical mass in terms of people at a practice. Not that you can't do some amazing things with a small group of people situationally,
mhm.
but I really saw this when I went abroad and I coached in Denmark. It was very, very common that you would have like a whatever you want to call it, senior group, national group, whatever your top
Yeah,
group on your club program of like 10, 11, or 12 swimmers. It was brutal to
it's
try to
brutal.
get something going, like sort of team spirit culturally in a
Yeah, it's
small
really
group like
hard.
that. It was really, really hard. I feel like 20 is kind of the magic number when you just there's something that changes in the chemistry when
Mhm.
you get up to that amount of people all together doing the same thing at the same time that you can't recreate in smaller groups.
Think it just allows for you to like cross other people, right? And we're 24 swimmers on our roster and 6 divers. So it's nice. We're 3 to a lane. Like we have all this space. But then when we break out, I mean, you have like 3 distance swimmers doing a miler set over here, and then you've got your 9 sprinters, and those 2 groups can feel really small very quickly if you're only training in those groups. So the importance, like we have always been better together in our program. The practices, meets, like the whole thing. we've always been better together.
Yeah, that distance group, that's dangerous. I mean, one person gets sick and then the other two don't get along with each other. You're in trouble.
You just got sometimes I think, like, maybe this is, like, the wooden-ism in me, like, yes, you've gotta love the work, but I do think you have to, like, kinda love the people that you do it with. You don't have to
Mhm.
love them all the time and all of the things, but you do have to love the grind with them, and they need to help you through that. Like, that's really important.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I say all the time when I'm out working with teams and, my work is almost solely focused from a psychological perspective. And I tell people we're so lucky in swimming that we actually organize things on big teams because
Yeah,
it is really an individual sport. It could very easily be the teams could be like way smaller.
it could be.
And I think it would be to the great detriment of a lot of the people. Like, they would not have the same quality of experience as they get just being in a bigger group and being able to bounce off more people and, and finding your people within that
Yeah.
structure.
Could you imagine if our rosters were 18, like most of our scoring rosters are at conference, and that was all you had, like no reserves, 18
You're
swimmers
bringing
in a
up controversial topics, Gina.
I feel like that's like such a small group. I wouldn't even know how to handle 18. It's funny, like
Yeah.
talking to our women's basketball coach, they only have 15, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's so
Yeah.
little."
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Because I mean, like I said, like you just, the smaller the group gets, the more likely it is that, some dynamics can just by nobody's fault at all can kind of fall apart, or you're just not getting along with,
yeah,
this person or that person. People drop off here or there. It gets really, really tricky. Uh,
really.
let's broaden out. I mean, you're
Okay.
in the big, I can't, why when I come to say the name of your conference, I mean, I want to call it the Big Ten, but like they changed that symbol to like the
Oh, when
B1G.
it with
Are we still
11,
calling
yeah,
it the Big Ten Conference, even though it has like 14 teams? Like, can I get
yeah.
an official ruling on that?
It's
Am I
always gonna
supposed
be
to,
the Big 10.
okay, I'm not supposed to call it like the big conference, right?
Well, I don't think so, but
I'm outing myself as like out of touch with this
it
question.
will always be the Big 10 to me, just
Okay.
like the Pac will always be the Pac-10. Like, I will never be it's like,
RIP.
I
Yeah.
can't even, like, get the Pac-12 out of my mouth, so, like, it's always gonna be the Big 10. It's always gonna be the Big
RIP
10.
Pac-10.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sad. Anyway, one of the challenges that you face is you're coaching at a school where even if you have a lot of improvement, if you're really moving things within your team, the hierarchy within that league is strongly entrenched, right?
It's huge. Yes,
How
it's
do
huge.
you measure progress then? How do you keep yourself focused, evaluating like, okay, we're headed in the right direction, we're catching up or we're getting to where we want to be? How do you look at that?
Yeah, I think it's been hard, right? Like, I think we've had so much internal success within our program in the last 3 and 4 years, which has been so awesome, and it's been really hard as a very highly competitive person to be like, "Oh, man, you don't see that all the time on the outside," but we know it on the inside, right? Like, we know we've broken all these school records. Like, we've rewritten our top 10 in history. I feel like something that our athletic director talked to me about on my interview was he's like, "Gina, I want you to write your chapter, and I want this to be a huge chapter and the biggest chapter of Illinois swimming," which was such a cool picture in my mind. And so I'm like, "How fast can I do that?" And I felt like we did that. And Chris, like, you got to think like, I think this is kind of a cool stat, and maybe this is normal, but when I was hired, like, think about our 200 and 400 medley relay. From those times that when I was hired in 4 years, we've gone faster than that like 15 times on both of those relays. Like, our top 10 lists are only relays that we've ever swum since I've been hired and since our staff took over. And I think just like things like that, I mean, that's crazy, you know? That took 20 years for them to do before, and we've done that in 4. And I'm very excited about that. And I think the way I best describe where I feel like we are as a program right now is, when you're like filling up your water cup and you're like, how many more drops until it all like spills? Is I'm like sitting there with it's not a beaker. What would that be called? The
A
eye drop
dropper, a
thing?
dropper.
A
Yeah.
dropper. And I'm like, okay, that one, that one, that one. And just like we're just on the brink of that, and you can feel it at practice and you can see it. And we're also in this territory that now in this program, every time we're at our best is a school record. Like now we're creating a new path. Like we've kind of figured out the old path and now we're creating a new one, and having the women, we're kind of trekking that together and doing that together, and doing all these things. And so I think it hasn't been a challenge, but it's definitely been different, is how do we go from there? And we keep focusing on ourselves, because I do think, like, in the end, like, you always want to be the best version of yourself. That's how we're going to keep getting better. And now, how do we take the best version of ourselves and compare it to others and know that swimming is time based, right? Like, it's black and white. Like, the scoreboard does not lie. And we need to go 156 in the two back, right? Like, and you need to do these things in order to get better and have that depth. And so it's been nice. And I think that's the next step that we're taking. We actually, really cool thing about Illinois is our head coaches are pretty close, and we do a lot of collaborating. And this summer, with the girls that are here, we've done like a leadership thing over the summer. And our soccer coach talked to us last week about mental preparation, setting the tone all the time, just about all the thoughts that you can talk to yourself about, setting neutral thoughts and not positive or negative, but like bringing it back and centering it. And then our women's basketball coach talked to the team this week. It's just about day to day, like be great every day and all the choices that you can make in a day to help you get to that end goal. We have our assistant volleyball coach. She was an Olympian, is talking to the team about imposter syndrome and like being steadfast in who you are and the work that you've done to be prepped for that. And then we have one more series that our head Olympic strength coach is talking to the team with our assistant throwing coach, Deanna Price, who's a world champion Olympian.
Mhm.
And they're just going to talk about what it means to be strong women in the weight room and how they can be leaders in the weight room and what that looks like day to day. So we do a lot of really cool things like that. We've done this 2 summers in a row. I think there's so much value in what that looks like. And so helping us take that next step, right? Like how do we get out of the bottom? Because that's the reality. And we talk about that. Like we have to keep working and we have to outwork other people and we have to be smarter, and it can't just be always in the pool.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I just listening to it, and I really am a believer in it takes a village. And it's so interesting to me that that's what you're describing. Like, that's not typical. That's not typical that an athletic department would have
Right.
that kind of, cross pollination,
Yeah.
especially even with it's like with athletes. It's one thing for you guys as coaches to be getting around and talking to each other, but actually having your athletes exposed to coaches from other programs, that's
It's
really,
so
really
cool
cool.
because,
Yeah.
they look up to those coaches. Like, they look up to Coach Green with women's basketball. I mean, like, she's crushing it, and they love her. And so then to have her in front of them, they're like, "Oh, man, this is awesome." Our women's basketball staff, they actually sat in on fall practice with football last year. Just learned how Coach B like runs his staff meetings, run their team meetings. Like, what do their day to day look like? I think there's a lot of that in our department, which is why Illinois as an athletic department, I think, is just like on the rise, and how we've done a lot of things a little bit different. And we have really great leadership in our department.
Yeah. And that's an investment that, like, as everybody else is talking about, like, oh, we need more money, 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 money. That doesn't really cost money.
No,
It's a cultural shift,
it's a
right?
cultural
It's
shift.
it's it's a reallocation of the resources that you already have. And I think, sometimes with the conversation so dominated by money, we start to get tunnel vision and we think like, oh, we just need more. I mean, Illinois is not going to turn into Ohio State
No,
tomorrow, and get that kind of budget to throw at things, but you want to compete anyway. And so your task is to think about, okay, what can we do here versus trying to emulate a formula that is maybe just not even replicable for us
right. And it's not how we operate as a department. And
or a
we've
university.
yeah, or a university.
No.
And we talk about that a lot in our head coaches meetings. It's like, hey, this is how we're going to operate and this is how we're going to do things in our department. And we all fall in line with that pretty well.
Yeah. Speaking of culture, I'm giving you the magic wand question. And
Oh,
that
no.
is, I bless you with a wish fulfilling wand, and you can just sort of tap it and make any kind of cultural change within NCAA swimming or power
Hmm.
conference swimming. What would you do?
Oh, okay, I'm glad that you put me on this one, because I really did need to think about it a little bit. Okay, so one thing I love that the SEC did is they usually have like some sort of mandated schedule, whether it was like a home and away. I wish our sport had a mandated schedule because every other sport, they have this like big release party. Like, here's everybody's teams. This is their home. This is their away. And I just feel like there's an element of that that is really exciting. It's exciting for fans. It's exciting for the teams to have that and know like, okay, we're in the Big Ten. I'm going to compete against Wisconsin year in and year out. We're always going to go here and it doesn't matter. I would love that.
Mm.
I would love that. And then like, hey, you get 3 out of conference competitions, you get to schedule them, you get to pick. I don't know. I just think that having that, like there just be something that's like super tangible that everybody else has. Like every other head coach has that. And I think that would be pretty neat.
I think I like that idea in the way that it brings parity as
Yeah.
well. I mean, one of the things that I've observed all the way back to my Georgia Tech coaching days, I got charged briefly with building a schedule. Courtney let me know, that she's just like, hey, I'm going to deputize you, kind of work on our schedule for next year. And I was a huge nerd. Not now, because obviously now I'm not a nerd anymore. But back in those
You're fine.
days, I was a huge nerd. And so I actually like sat down and studied. I thought like, okay, the top schools, like, what are they doing when they plan a schedule? And I found out like there was a lot of nuance there. There was a lot of like, they were kind of playing around with that aspect of it. In fact, actually what I saw more than anything was that they weren't competing very much, which was
Right.
an interesting insight. They were, I think there was, at least at that time, I think it's the culture around it has probably changed in some respects, but my inference was that a lot of them were going like, well, we want to preserve bigger blocks of training, so we're not really going to focus on having
Yeah.
like a lot of meets on the schedule. And yeah, I mean, like I never even, until you said that, I never even thought about the fact that like that's just something within our ranks that we have autonomy over. That's not, and it's not typical that a school would have autonomy over that piece of it.
No. And I wish we did. I think it would be, I don't know. I think it'd be fun. I think it'd be great for our student athletes to have that experience too.
Yeah. All right. Let's get to the personal part of this. The
Okay.
part where I ask deep, probing, personal
Okay.
questions that really put you on the hot seat.
All right.
We've already talked about a couple coaches that were really influential to you that you look up
Okay.
to.
Yep.
Aside from those two power women, Cindy
Yeah.
and Mary, who are some of the coaches out there that you look up to the most? And what do you admire about them?
And like they might not know this, right? Like it doesn't
This would be
matter.
perfect if they don't know this.
Okay.
It'd be so nice to send them. They'll go like,
Because I think you have like mentors that you like call all the time or whatever, or have a different relationship. And then there's like people you look up to from afar. I might not know them at all. I would say like Matt Leach at Iowa State.
oh, I love Matt Leach.
Me too. I just like he's been really successful. He's been a lot of places too. Like he's done it but I do love about Matt is like he's picked the right places for him and
Yeah.
he didn't have to go with the grain or against the grain and he's always figured out how to be successful. And I think that's been pretty cool to watch him. But he's also someone I pick up and call like once a week. I'm like, Matt, what do you think about this? Or hey, Matt, I think one day we went out to lunch. I'm like, tell me all your secrets about sprint training. Like, I just want to know. And so, and fiery and competitive. And I love getting to see him all the time at Iowa State. And we did a dual meet there last year and then they're coming here this year. And so that he's someone that I do look up to, whether it's as a friend, as a mentor, because we swam at the same time. So we're around the same age. So that's been fun to kind of see. And he worked at LSU under Dave. And so we just have like some of those things that are really similar. So Matt, and then I would say like Jordan at UCLA. I mean, she's amazing. I feel so fortunate that she took over my alma mater and we've probably gotten closer since she took over at UCLA. But I've watched her and her evolution of being a head coach. And she's like a constant, like my constant cheerleader. Like, Jeana, you got it. Like, it's okay. Like, hey, you're going to have ups and downs. Like, you got it. Just keep pushing. Like, keep doing this. And she's the person that I call if like, hey, Jordan, I really need some advice. Like, I really need to know how this works. And I've looked up to Jordan for a while and she's fantastic. And then Stephanie Yunker at Louisville.
Mm.
I think the world of Stephanie. I think the world of Blair at A&M. And, those are just women in my core group that I've always had in my corner, and I hope I've always been in their corner. And then probably the other one from afar is like Bobby Gentoro. I love the way he markets their program. I love the way he does things. And it's so different. I could never do what Bobby does. I could never do it that way. I don't think anyone can. I think it's Bobby. That's how Bobby does it. So I do admire coaches that are so uniquely themselves, like Brian at Akron. Like they do what they do. And man, they're good at it.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think one of the misunderstandings I had when I started coaching was, and I think this is a really common thing with people as they start and, they look up to people and they want to emulate. And there's actually at a core, like from a learning experience, that's probably a good thing to do, to kind of try and emulate a
Yeah.
little bit on the front end. But over time, what you learn is it's not a matter of emulation. You got to figure out how to coach best within who you are, and
Yes.
and really figure out who you are. And I think knowing some of the people that you're referencing better than others, like I think your list there, it speaks to it. I mean, I had Jordan on here, as you know, a few
Yes.
months ago, and I still
He's
find
a rock
myself,
star.
I mean, she was so good on it, such that like people were intimidated afterwards because they were like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna have to follow that
Jordan.
appearance."
Yeah.
And I just found her to be such a breath of fresh air. Uh,
Mhm.
for me, I was like, "Oh, this is different." Right? This is just a different wrinkle on how to do this that
Yeah.
I haven't come across before. And it was really, really inspiring
Yeah.
to be a part of that. Okay, we'll stop the love fest
Okay.
for
Okay.
now.
Those are good though.
Let's let's flip.
Okay.
One of the questions I always want to ask coaches, because I think it's not discussed very much, but God, is it important, is how do you take athlete feedback, right? Especially in this day
Mm.
and age, athletes are feeling more and more empowered to tell us what they think, tell us how they're
Right.
feeling, all that piece. And, sometimes that's a point of frustration for coaches. I talk to coaches when they're,
Yeah.
having their private moments quite a bit, but how do you approach that?
That's a good question. I think feedback, I mean, we'd be remiss to say, like, I'm like, you guys need to be open to feedback, doing all these things, right? And then not being that myself. However, I do find it like it can be feedback in the right way is always good, right?
Yeah.
And feedback is making us better. And so I do really welcome it in times. And I think I welcome it in the terms of I get more clarity on where they're coming from. It's like, hey, like I hear you and I know you don't understand all the reasons that like I did this or whatever, but can you tell me more about your thought process, right? Like getting curious with them and maybe putting the bridge up. But I do think feedback can also feel like very threatening, right? Like of well, you don't trust me, you don't do all these things. And I think in my first 2 years I felt that a lot because I was so excited to get going. I'm finally doing my own thing. And then when you get pushback and people ask questions, you're like, you're not supposed to question me. Well, it's really okay. But I've learned that now, and I will say I think I've learned that better as the kids that I've recruited have been in the program because I've gotten to know them longer, and we've set that expectation a lot earlier. And I always tell them in the recruiting process, like, you're really good for a reason. Like, obviously, whatever you and your club coach are doing is really working. And so when you come in, like, let's collaborate. Like, let's sit down, let's talk about these things and let's be better together. Right. I think Chloe Diner for me is a huge example of sitting down at the end of the season every year and being like, okay, Chloe, give me your feedback. And she's an engineer, so she's super analytical of all the things. I am not an engineer. I am also super not analytical, as you might know. Maybe not everyone knows that, but as you might know. And so, like, making sure that I truly understand where her feedback's coming from and understanding the why, because the why for her is very paramount in everything that she does. And so I think I welcome it now in the right setting. I've even, when I send out the end of the year questionnaires and when we are going to have our end of the season meetings, I ask for feedback on myself of how can I coach them better? Is there something that they need more clarity on? And I felt like that was really helpful this year when I did that.
I think you hit the nail on the head in there talking about how things have changed as your relationship with the athletes
Yeah.
giving you feedback has changed. One of the things that, I mean, I work with coaches and I work with athletes as well. And probably one of the number one things I spend time on with athletes, because I feel like it's just a lost skill, is they feel in many ways empowered to share feedback more than ever, certainly more than I did when I was,
I don't
like a
think I did
teenager,
that.
right? No,
I don't know if I would have felt okay
well,
doing that for anybody.
I was a little bit of a punk, so I shouldn't
I
say like
I
I,
was not.
I was feeling a little bit empowered, but probably more empowered than your average person. But I think what they're often missing is that the relationship that they have with the person they're giving the feedback to completely changes how that feedback is received. I mean, you
Correct.
referred to Mary earlier. She tells it how it is.
Yeah.
But somebody might try to emulate that without understanding that the reason why Mary's been able to coach successfully for so many years with that as a strategy is because she has the relationship to deliver that feedback on
100%.
on the other side of it. And that is a very, very important ingredient. And often, unfortunately, I just think this, like, if you want to talk about magic wand stuff, I would change. So much of the youth sports system just does not necessarily bringing up athletes in a culture where they have the best relationships with the coaches that are
Yeah.
bringing them in there. And so you have this kind of, it's a little bit of a toxic combination where they're saying things that should be fine in a
Right.
context where everybody like knows and loves and respects each other, but that's not the context it's being said in. And then you have big problems between athletes and coaches.
And I think I've even found that this is just talking about like the hierarchy, right? Like you have your sport administrator and then you have me and then you have the team. I have found because our team, and I'm sure a lot of programs and departments have to do this, they have like an end of the year like evaluation, right, from your team. And then you get that information. I have found it easier to receive feedback from the team, literally from the team to me, as opposed to from the team to an administrator and then back. Like I would much rather them say something to my face so I can ask and understand and like have more clarity than just getting feedback, right? I think there's two ways for me. If I can ask and I can talk about it and make sure that relationship is there and like that communication factor's there, give me feedback all day. That's fine. But, as long as it's a conversation and I can ask and learn, I think that's important.
That's hard to create though. I mean,
It
it's
is really
tough.
hard.
You can ask for it, but
They don't
getting
always
up,
give it to you.
yeah, setting up an environment. It's actually one of the things I work with in some of the work that I do with coaches. I have a whole section where I just talk about like how to create the atmosphere for the exact meeting that you're talking about, where
Right.
two things, I think. Both you create one where the athletes are like, I feel like I can really say what I think
Right.
in this meeting, and that you have some kind of boundary on it so it doesn't just snowball into like 2 hours of like another person being like, and you
Right.
know what?
Because that
They
happens too.
the oatmeal is always chunky in the dining hall and after morning practice, and that means like I don't enjoy eating, and you're like, okay, we've lost the plot on what we
Yeah,
were trying to
we've gone
accomplish.
way far away.
Right, right. We've gotten so unfocused that we're all going to walk away from this super frustrated, but without any kind of like momentum in a direction where we want to go.
Right.
It's like a key relationship skill. I mean, I'm 16 years married, and maybe within the last year and a half have finally learned how to have the like conversation, set up lots of conversations where it's like, let's work on this together versus like,
Yeah.
you're wrong. You
Right.
know,
Well, boundaries
it's
are
tough.
super healthy, right? Like having
Hmm.
boundaries and like knowing your parameters, like you have to, like all the time. I
Yeah.
think that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Last question about you,
Okay.
Jeana. What's your biggest interest outside the sport?
I have a lot. Maybe. I don't know if I have a lot, but I do. I really, I tell our team, like, I really want them to have lives away from the pool. And so I feel like I have to also have a life
Yeah. You
away
got to
from the
lead by
pool.
example.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so that's, like, a big deal, like, well, one, maybe this goes unsaid, but I love being a mom. My time with my 2 girls and my husband, but my time with my 2 girls is, like, paramount because you don't get a lot of that. So, that's fun. I've got one 3-year-old and I've got a 10-year-old, and it's just the dynamic is kind of crazy all the time. But I do love my oldest plays softball, and I have loved being the softball mom. It's so fun. It's
It's the
different.
best.
It's different, but I love being outside and I love watching the game and I love watching like that progress has been really fun. And just being able to, it's just a different sport, just different system. Like the coach in me is kind of like, oh, this is cool. But I do love that. But I love to garden. Like I've got a huge green thumb. That's like a big thing for me. I want to say I'm like a secret closet homesteader. Like I love to cook and I love to garden. And so in the summer, like that's like my happy place is where I'm
Amazing.
at. Yeah. I love to
Yeah.
jar and can things. Like yeah, I'm like one of those women. I won't lie.
It is pretty fun. I'm with you on the kid sports competitions. I was saying to somebody earlier today, like I don't watch pro sports anymore. Basically, I'm not a pro sports fan. I might be
We don't
making a
watch pro
comeback
sports.
as a women's pro sports fan because I went to a Gotham FC,
Mhm.
that's the women's professional soccer league match around here, and it was like, oh, this is what I like
Yeah.
about pro sports that I haven't experienced going to some other stuff in a long time. So
Yeah.
we'll put a pin in that. I don't know yet,
Okay.
but like
Another time.
the kids sports stuff, I mean, on one level, like any sporting event is so enhanced by having an emotional attachment to what's happening. And what could you think of that's like gives you a bigger emotional attachment than
Then,
watching the person, like the people that you love most in the world play sports? Like
it's kind of cool.
it is absolutely top tier.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I can see how a lot of parents kind of lose their minds around
Same.
youth sports stuff.
I have to
I
really
do.
bite my tongue as a
Yeah.
coach. Like, and as
I-
like that, like you get competitive quickly, and I'm like, oh, that's your 10-year-old, not your
right.
18-year-old, right?
Right.
Like,
Right.
stop.
Right. I, I find it's a great social opportunity to talk to other parents and like, gets me out with the kind of diverse group of people that maybe not necessarily are like people I'm, friends with or seeing in my community, gets me talking to them. I'm a little bit of a sideline police. I've a couple times I've talked to other parents and been like, it's not good that you're shouting instructions out on the field right now.
Well, how about like I look at it and I'll be like, look at my husband and be like, I would never recruit that kid based on their parents. Like I would,
Yeah, no.
that's a real thing. I would sit there and I watch
Yeah.
some of that. And I'm like, do I tell
Yeah.
them? Do I not? And I'm like, no, that's not my
Yeah.
place. Just walk away.
Only a couple times. It's not a good idea,
No, I'm not
but
going to
I
do it.
just feel
I'm not
like
going to do it. I think it is wild though. The one thing about being this softball mom and like learning a different sport is it has given me some gratitude for swimming though, because we look at swimming like whether it's summer league, like swimming lessons, like someone's constantly teaching your kid how to swim. Like you can't just throw your kid in the pool and be like, okay, see ya. You're always learning how to do it. You're always refining your skills. You're always trying to be better. And you are in softball, but it's wild because rec softball, it's like my daughter really wants to learn how to pitch. And they're like, oh, well, we're not going to teach her. Like she can do lessons. And I'm like, well,
what
isn't
do you
that your
mean?
job as a coach? And I just and that's no knock to anything. Like it's just I mean
Right.
maybe it's just the rec league,
Mhm.
but it's wild to me that like we're in a sport where you have to always be teaching, always, and there sometimes you just play games, and I like can't
Yeah.
wrap my head around that. It's kind of cool, but it's also given me appreciation for it.
Yeah, and I think even I don't know what you think. My oldest is a little bit older than yours. My daughter is 12, but I'm kind of realizing something that I mean, this was always true. I just didn't quite put it together. But like she's 12, she's going to be 13 in December. She's just kind of getting semi-serious
Yeah,
about a sport. And then I start to think like, oh my God, like she's 4 years away from like looking at colleges.
yeah,
The period in which from where they sort of reach a developmental stage to where they're potentially getting recruited by
yeah,
somebody like you
kind of
is
crazy.
so small.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
so small. It's crazy.
Time can
Well,
slow down at any point. That'd be great.
I know. It won't.
It doesn't.
Jeana, it's been amazing. Thank you so
I'm
much.
so happy you had me on.
Yeah, me too. Me too. It's been so fun. It's like one of those absolute time flying moments. I'm lucky that I have a running clock in
Yeah.
the upper corner of what I'm doing. Anything you want to plug, any like social media pages you want to send people to,
I
a
mean,
secret blog that you've been publishing but you haven't shared with the
about my
public, and now
sourdough bread that I make.
about
No, I mean,
your
I would say
homesteading.
obviously, like, you can always find us on Instagram. I feel like that's the only thing that I'm really good at when it comes to social media is Instagram, but I try as have 2 lives, right? Like, I have my coaching life and I have my real life, and I try to blend them together as much as possible. I think just always following our program and us and as a staff and, we're actual humans, like, we have more than just posting about our teams, right? So, not too
Yep.
much.
Yep. If anyone wants to reach me for any reason, you want to nominate somebody for the podcast, you want to engage me for coaching, whether for you as a coach or an athlete, email me, crdesantis@gmail.com. You can go to my website, christycoach.com, and you can go to Instagram, Christy_coach. And I publish this podcast every week. One more thing that I always forget to say is that you can donate to support this podcast. In fact, Cindy Gallagher is a donor to this podcast.
That's awesome.
Something I very much appreciate, her chipping
That's cool.
in to this whole process. So if you want to be a donor too, you can just make a one-time donation. You're not going to get trapped into some kind of subscription, Patreon portal where you forget that you're sending money to the swim brief. If you go to christycoach.com, you scroll to the middle of the page, you should see a link there to do that. And those are always appreciated because they help fund me going to events and meeting people in person like Jeana, and then having wonderful podcasts like this. So Jeana, thank you one more time.
You're so welcome.
Thank you to everybody for listening, and I'll be back with you guys again in a week.